And we're live. Welcome to the Collector Series. I'm your host, DPZ, at PC with DPZ. And with me, I have Marco Bisio Jr.
Yes, sir.
Yes, he is an infamous Ken Griffey Jr. collector, but more importantly, he's a long-term hobbyist. He's someone that's been collecting cards for a very long time, someone that I have a lot of respect for, and I've learned quite a bit even the short time I've known him. I was really excited to bring you on the show. So thank you. Welcome to the show. Looking forward to exploring and understanding your journey and what that means to you and what things we can learn from. So thanks for being a part of the show.
My dude, it's my pleasure. I'm not going to lie. It's the first one I've ever done, and hopefully it'll be the first of many. But, I've been trying to do this for a long time, so I genuinely appreciate the invite. Look forward to having this conversation.
Definitely. Absolutely. So, let's just cut right to the chase. Why do you collect cards? What got you involved in collecting cards? Was there a watershed moment? Was it you were a kid and you're collecting and buying packs of 89 Donruss at the grocery store, or was it something else? I mean, maybe I'm dating myself there because that's kind of what we did. But what got you into the hobby? What's your journey been?
Oh man. So it's been a long time since we've been able to have this conversation, so I'm looking forward to it. It's not a too flashy one, but I'm born and raised in Reno, Nevada, and I lived right down the street from a sports card shop called Advantage Collectibles. The owner was Lori. I'll leave out the last name, but Lori, I used to shop there and go buy packs and just check out the scene. I'd walk down to there. It took me 2 minutes to walk to the shop, and I'd walk down there, hang out with everybody else, and I got to the age of 15. I said, "Hey, do you need help?" And she hired me. So 15, going back all the way to 15, that's when I started working for the shop. But before that, I started collecting baseball cards back in 1989, and the man that I collected was Nolan Ryan. I had been playing baseball since I was 5. I played baseball for 15 years before I stopped playing. I won't go into that side, but I stopped playing because my sport was football in high school. I was a starting varsity quarterback in football in high school. And I stopped playing baseball to run track to get faster. So that's kind of why I stopped playing baseball. But I'll digress and go back. But 1989 is when I started collecting baseball cards. If any of you know me, my Instagram tagline is Tolkien TMNT Griffey 24, and there's a reason for that. I collect all things Middle Earth, all things Tolkien, all things Ninja Turtles, and at the time I was collecting Ninja Turtles, and I'll never forget my first Ninja Turtle was 1988, sitting in the Costco parking lot. It was the original Donatello, and alongside that, I collected baseball cards. I love baseball cards. I mean, you play baseball, you collect baseball cards, and Nolan Ryan was my dude. And up until 1993, to be specific, February of 1993, my very first Beckett, and if you know, you know. February of 1993, Mr. Ken Griffey Jr. was on that cover, and I was sold. I was hooked since, and I'm a junior, just like the man, Ken Griffey, and I played center field just like Ken Griffey. I'm not left-handed, but I love baseball, and he was the ish back then. He was the man, and playing with his dad was amazing. I got to play volleyball. Flash forward several years in the future, but I got to play volleyball with my dad. Something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And to be able to have that experience, I know it's something pretty special and probably will never, ever be done again in baseball history. So, being grown up with that, getting to see that, sharing the experiences, having that first Beckett, I mean, you should see it. I don't have it with me right now, but, I wrote in it. I mean, the pages are all torn up. It looks like it's well used. Let me just say that. But February of 1993 is when I got started. And if you can imagine, back then, I was born in 1982, so that puts me at 11 years old. I mean, again, I'm buying the cheapest packs. My parents are buying me the cards from the card shop if something pops up. So, at the time, it wasn't, the 1993 Finest Refractor. That didn't even exist to me back then. It was the 1993 Topps card. It was the 1993 Upper Deck card that is probably the most iconic card that I own in my collection because it was on that cover of the Beckett. And I have several copies. I have it in a PSA 10 graded. You'll probably ask me a question later why the majority, 99.9% of my collection is not graded. I do have that one in a PSA 10, and there are a few cards I do have, and that's one of them because of that moment, because it was on the cover of that Beckett, and then it excelled there. I'm gonna. I guess I'll divulge the kind of history if time allows. Dennis, does time allow? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, high school dude growing up, 1998, excuse me, he was a freshman in high school, and I graduated in 2001. I'll flash forward there. 2000 was really the year that I stopped collecting. If you can imagine, senior in high school. I'm not really thinking too much about baseball cards. I'm thinking about my girlfriend. I'm thinking about my football game. I'm thinking about what I'm going to be doing after the football game. So 2000 really marked the year that I stopped collecting Griffey for a long, long time. It's not because he went to the Reds. As a matter of fact, I was celebrated among all my friends where he's going to the Reds. He's going back home. He's going to be closer to home and where he, went to high school. And it was a really, really big deal. It's very unfortunate that he went through so many injuries in the 2000s. But that's not why I stopped collecting, is because he went to the Reds or because I don't like him in a Reds jersey. I will admit that I absolutely love him in a blue jersey. I think he looks better. I think the Mariners, outfit looks cleaner. But at the end of the day, he had some amazing experiences in Reds. And, I've talked to a lot of my friends in the hobby about why a lot of people don't collect him on the Reds. It's, personal preference. He had an incredible 10-year stint, 11-year stint, actually, with the Mariners. He did the majority and had the majority of his, amazing, unbeatable stats while he was on the Mariners. But there are so many cards from 2000 to 2010, mostly I'd say 2000 to 2007, because it started getting convoluted at the end there. But there are so many cards in 2000 to 2007 that just are unbelievable cards. One-of-one patches, one-of-one materials, rare parallels that you'll never get to see. And I missed out on all of those. So I'll digress a little bit, and then we can kind of go into that a little bit in the future. But, I was solely 1990s Griffey for the longest time. So after I went to high school or after I went to college, I started picking back up in 2003, 2004. And that's, I had a job and I had money. And that's really when I started picking up some of those cards like the PMGs, the ECs, the essential credentials, the finest refractor. I don't remember, but I don't think I had that card until 2003, 2004. It was, it was not growing up in the 90s where I had those cards. It did not exist in my collection. I had separate boxes for cards that were listed in Beckett above $100, like the 98 Ultra Diamond Producers, the 97 Ultra Diamond Producers, those hard to get 1 out of 288 packs. I had a few of those in the 90s. Those I put in snap cases in a special box. And then I had a binder with all the other commons and all the other cards that, I had one copy of, right? And it wasn't until the early 2000s that I could start picking up some of these cards. So you'll see a lot of, collectors in the hobby now that are just now picking up an EC. And unfortunately, they're the ones that are paying $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for these cards. And I have to tell you, I maybe paid $300-$400 for them. I don't remember. So I am one of those lucky collectors that has been collecting forever. As a matter of fact, you date it, 1993. This is 30 years. This marks 30 years. And we're in April now. So it's 30 years and 2 months where I've been collecting Griffey Jr. And, the story all along, it was all 90s up until 2016, Dennis. That's when I started branching out. And odd story about that, I was living in California at the time. And I was bored. I hate saying that. It's kind of embarrassing even saying that. But I was bored. I was picking up maybe 1 or 2 cards a year at that point, and I had to find something else to start collecting. And I'm like, you know what? I have some in 2000. I collected them in 2000. I didn't stop collecting until I graduated high school in 2001. And let's start there. Let's start collecting 2000. So I made a list of all the cards in 2000. Unfortunately, some of the cards that I did end up picking up are not the auto jerseys and some of those rare parallels number to 24. I still, 30 years of collecting Griffey, I still have not got those. There's several cards that I still don't have, and some of those are the jersey autos number to 24, number to 30 in the year 2000 that I don't have. And, I just haven't had the money or haven't invested in that side of the collection yet. And, unfortunately, you saw, last month or 2 months ago, the 2000 game jersey auto number to 24 sold for $16,000 or $14,000. And that's something I won't be able to get unless I sell some cards, and something I can do. Maybe I'll get to that point of, I can sell this card, or I can sell this card, or I can trade this card for that. But at the end of the day, it's one of those, it's some of those cards that I'll never be able to pick up unless I start trading or selling. I know a lot of the collectors in the hobby nowadays are, basketball collectors that have these major collections with Jordan and Kobe, and we all know how valuable those are, right? So it's easy to sell one single Jordan card and come over to baseball and, pick up a card that the Jordan is $150,000, right? Well, in baseball, Griffey's only $15,000 or $40,000 for the '99 jersey auto, right? Or $80,000 for the '98 jersey auto, right? It's just a different world. So if I didn't get it when I was collecting only '90s, or if I didn't get it in the last 4 years, it's going to be very difficult for me to pick up some of these cards that I have yet to add to my collection. So I know I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. It's kind of an odd timeline, but 2016 is really when I started collecting outside of the '90s. Up until then, people would ask, Marco, do you want this card? And I said, no, it's outside of the '90s. I don't want it. It was 2016, and then 2018 is really when I started going all in on the 2000s. And we all know what happened in 2018. There was a couple people that started entertaining the idea of selling their collections. Mr. Mike Vandal, I don't know if you know him, Dennis, but he was a major player collector, one of the biggest, and both '90s and 2000s, alongside Rick Seifert. Those two had and I have to mention somebody else, Chris Kordelski, but those three just had an absolutely insane Griffey collection. I would say, not to toot my own horn, but my '90s collection rivaled the best, if not one or number two in the world. That's all I focused on. And I just couldn't touch the 2000s. And it was in 2018 when Mike started selling his collection. And Mr. Rodney Vallejo, we all know Rodney, but he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Marco, I have an opportunity to buy a complete run of the 2000 finest run." And I mean, arguably, it is the most beautiful set that's out there in the 2000s. I mean, the swing that's on that card, the pose, the design of the card is just absolutely flawless. And regardless if it's in a Reds jersey, it will rival anything in the '90s. And I can hand over heart say that as an avid '90s collector, that is hands down one of the best sets ever made. And he got that one. I got the '90s or the 2006 finest run. So I have the Superfractor in that run. I have all the way from the regular card to the of 10 Superfractor gold, or not the Superfractor, excuse me, the gold X-Fractor. I have that. He has the entire 2005 finest run. It was really that started the whole 2000s crave for me. So in the past 18, 19, in the past five, I can't believe it's 5 years already, but in the past 5 years, I mean, my collection has exponentially gone from, I'd say, 8,000, 9,000 from the '90s all the way up to 14,600 unique Griffey cards in my collection, which includes everything from 1987 to 2010. So again, in a nutshell, I know it really wasn't a nutshell, but in a nutshell, I mean, that's really how the collection has grown over the past 5 years. I mean, I've nearly doubled the collection in a matter of 5 years from the first 25 years of collecting. And that's just from the cards that have been released from 2000 all the way up to 2010. I've kind of steered away from, I have steered away from everything in the retirement age, except for Panini. I have the majority of the Panini Prism runs, including the golds. I even have the entire 2019 Panini Prism run, including the finite 1/1, which is amazing. And that's kind of what started my collecting of Panini Prism, was that 2019 run. I ended up getting the finite for $150. Now it would probably sell for a couple thousand, but I ended up picking that up for 150, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go after this entire run. And I just last month finished that run with the goal of 10 to finish that. I think it's 37 cards or something like that. But I do have, I think, 250 cards in the retirement age, mostly consist of that Panini. But again, the rest is all from 1987 to 2010. And if I had my list in front of me, I should have got these numbers down, but I'd be glad to share that with you, Dennis, or anybody else that's interested. But out of the 90s, I think I'm at 98% completion. In the 2000s, it's a little bit less just because of all those tops moments and milestones runs, which I have listed out in completion. One more thing I'll mention, I know that we were supposed to do this last week, so I mean, my greatest of apologies that we didn't end up getting to that. But I've been working a lot on this list in hopes of sharing it with any collectors out there that are interested in seeing a list in completion. It is 100% in completion from 1987 to 2010. So hoping that there are collectors out there that like me, that that do want a complete run, that are interested in seeing a complete run of a certain card, or want to know all the different parallels of this card, or why this card is so rare. Like you mentioned earlier, right? Why this card is so rare? Why should I, if it ever pops up, why should I get this one? Well, I have in my list, I have added comments where I've added this much of, in a paragraph or so, right, of data to support why this card is the way that it is, or why this card is so special. The information that I've gathered over the last 30 years. If you can imagine, I've talked to all the heads, in the Griffey world about the information that they've gotten. They're a lot older than me, right? That have been collecting, 30, 40 years. And we're able to afford to buy those cards in the late 90s and the early 2000s that had just an insane collection, like Rick and Mike, that are a little bit older, that had the means to do so. So I've been working a lot on that list in hopes that somebody would say, "Hey, Marco, yeah, share it with me," and we'll go from there. So, like I said, Dennis, it's a storied career. It's a storied, not career, but it's a storied story, and I love sharing it. It's super exciting, and yeah, I have an insane collection, but it's all organized, and I love spending the hours and hours and hours of organizing this collection.
So Marco, what would you say? How big is the Griffey community, the Griffey collecting community?
Well, every month it gets larger. The core knit group, there were 5 or 6 of us that went head to head. There's a lot more that I don't even remember the names. All I do is remember their eBay handles, right? And I have a list of those people that before eBay stopped using that, we could email that person and say, "Hey, dude, that was an awesome win." There's so many stories, Dennis, but one in particular I'll never forget. It was sometime back in the late 2000s. I was outbid on a 99 Brilliance 24 karat. And we all know what that would sell for. I don't think I need to. It goes without saying how much that card would sell for. But I got outbid for $95. $95.
Wow.
On a card that no joke, even raw, would sell for $25,000-$30,000, and it's insane because I've seen it all. I've seen it all. What cards used to sell for. Another one. I have to tell you this. This is one of the stories I've been waiting to share for years. But back in 2008 or 2007, it was one of those years I can't remember. I won the 98 EX Now of 10. For $550, Dennis, for $550. And we all know what that car would sell for now. And $550, I'll never forget that. And I got it in hand. I put it inside my binder because that's how I was. I put everything in binder, organized by brand and then by parallel and how rare it was. So I had the Essentials Future right next to the Essentials Now in a 9-pocket 3-ream binder for years.
Wow.
And so, you go back to, the initial question, how big is the community? It was a very tight-knit group, and it was really sad to see, a couple of the big ones like Mike and Rick sell off. There's so many people that have benefited, not financially, yes, financially, but have benefited from these guys' collection. And it's incredible that for them to spread the love and to have these collections, to be able to give them to other people and to have that story of saying, you know what? I got this from the man, right? Like I got this from this guy, and maybe someday that'll be me. That some guy will reach out to me and give me a list of all the cards he wants, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I have 90% of those. Let's talk price, but it's substantially grown. I wouldn't say due in large part to the pandemic and COVID and the funds that everybody had to be able to collect Griffey at the time. I truly feel that Griffey over time has stood the test of time, and what he's done for the hobby, what he continues to do for the hobby. Granted, I think he needs to stop autographing cards. So if this ever gets to him, Griffey, please stop signing so many cards. But I think because of that, so many new collectors pull him out of a pack and like, who's Griffey? Well, what do you mean, who's Griffey? Right? Who's Griffey? He's the kid. He's the natural. Yeah. He's the guy that he was everything to me, to guys like me that are in their 40s and late 30s that grew up watching him play every single day, every single summer, spring, and fall. And it's awesome to see how large the Griffey community has grown. There's guys out there that, I would say are bandwagon fans, but there's bandwagon fans in every hobby and every business, right? And I don't put them down. I don't disparage that. The more the merrier. Please come on board, because Griffey's never going away. He's never going away. He'll have his hands in the hobby till the day he's gone, and I think that's incredible. I think it's an incredible story, and guys like me and Rick and Mike and Rodney and Joe and Chris and all these guys that have been collecting him for decades. Can say it's, we love him, and, we love what he does for the hobby. We love what he did for me as a kid. Again, that's a part of the story I didn't really expand on, but, I mentioned he's a junior. I mentioned that he plays baseball. I mentioned that he was center field, but, wearing his cap on backwards. And again, I didn't mention playing with his dad, but just what he did and who he was through my entire childhood. It's something special, and nobody can take that away from me. So it's not because of a financial gain. It's not because of, yes, I love the look of the card, but it's because it's him. He's my dude, and he'll always be my dude. And, there's so many people that have reached out to me and, hey, when are you going to sell? I want that card. I've never been able to find that card. Like, the Giants of the Game. I was the first one to have that card. And, I got that off of Rick. Rick was the only one that had that card of 10. And there's other cards out there that have never surfaced again that I'm the only one that have. The only one that has.
So do you think that particular card, let's use that card as an example for obvious reasons. Do you think a card like that will gain value over time? Or will it be because nobody really knows about it in the mainstream, it will only be valuable to the most devout collector?
Oh, Dennis, I will say this, that if we do more things like this, okay, if the old school guys, right, I don't know if we'll ever be able to get Rick or, Mike on, but, if the old school guys and the guys that know the old school guys that have all this knowledge continue to share that knowledge and don't keep it away. I mean, we were, a couple of hobby friends of mine were talking, why so many of us lied in secrecy for so long. I mean, I was one of them. I didn't start my Instagram until last year, and I don't want to share this. I don't want to share that. It's not because I'm afraid to share. It's just, I don't know how to. I don't even know where to start, right? Like, where do I start sharing? And how do I share my story? What interest is out there, Dennis, of sharing the stories behind these cards? And so the Giants of the Game, no flash to it at all, right? The back is the redemption back, but it's incredible. There are only 10. And as I mentioned to you before, there's only 3, maybe 4 cards in the history of cards that are just base inserts with no parallels, none whatsoever. Giants of the Game being one of them. The Perfect 10 from '98 Florida Showcase being another. I had an opportunity. $2,000. A guy named Sean. I won't give the last name, but a guy named Sean, pretty predominant individual in the Griffey community. But I ended up picking a couple arrows up from him. But he had this one. He's like, Marco, you want this? And at the time, I was like, no. He offered it to me for $2,000. It was so high back then. I mean, this was back in the early 2010s maybe, and I was like, dude, no, like that's not that card. It can't be worth that much, right? And now again, it's one of those stories that you kick yourself in the pants for not pulling the trigger, because again, there are guys out there that would pay a fortune for that card. But the Perfect 10, it's hand numbered on the back of 10. It's an artist painted. I don't know if the original art ever surfaced out there, but it's amazing. And then the third and final, I think, is the 2000 Pacific Wild Vinyl. Uh, Granted, it's the ugliest of the three. It's Griffey in a bright red jersey. The back is a vinyl backing, so it's all white, kind of vinyl. So it's still cool. But out of the three, I have that one. And like I do with the Giants in the game, but I don't have the best looking one, and that's the Perfect 10, unfortunately. But back to the Giants in the game, do I feel and think that it will rise in value if, Dennis, we continue to get that knowledge out there and let these new collectors and the old school collectors know that this is out there and this is how difficult it was to obtain it? Then yes, I absolutely do. There will be people out there that, again, not Flash. It won't ever be an EC, Essentials Credentials, and it won't ever be a PMG. Just because of how large that following is, of Star Rubies, I don't think it'll ever reach that level. But if we continue to educate the new collectors and the old school collectors that just had no idea, I mean, Dennis, you'll see all the time. I don't know how active you are on the Facebook group, but you'll see guys even in the '90s group that'll get on there and I didn't know that card existed, and it's like, how did you know that card didn't exist during the '90s group, right? And it's not a bad thing. It's not, it's not where I'm hating on that person. It's just like, holy moly, it's amazing to me how many of these cards, like the stories got lost in translation. Right.
I think what's really cool about that particular card and the stand and deliver red lettering card. I mean, I've got a few of these from Joe. I put together a pretty cool collection, half of which came from Joe. But which means, he hand created, he graded them, he evaluated them, he picked them out. I mean, to me that it's like be like buying a card from you. It'd be like if I can put my collection together from pure amazing collectors that care so much. It matters, and that's what this show is about, to kind of unearth and showcase what being a collector is all about. What it means to collect cards. You're not so worried about the value. The only problem with the value now, this is only because of now, because the market has matured so much and the prices have reflected that and gone up. To buy these cards, I mean, I had to sell everything I had. I had a PC of about 100 cards, and it went down to 20 in order to just afford to buy all of, because I didn't want to use too much of my own capital in order to afford to buy some of these cards, and it still wasn't enough. I still had to spend money to get them. That is why value does matter. Now, the Giants in the game is a bit different, but it's so cool to be able to say you own something that one other person owns, you. That's a really fun story. The stand and deliver story is cool, based on the redemptions. Only 25 of them, and they came in these plaques, and so this condition insensitive. There's all this stuff, right? But not a lot of people don't even know about that card. So it's they love their atomic refractors. I love those too. The embossed, that's amazing. Like that 97 embossed, to me, that looks like a super fractor. I love it. I got that 10 from Joe as well. But when we talk about collecting cards, the value does matter to a degree, because when you're buying these graded ones anyway, you're spending money on them, and so you kind of want them to hold value. I would say, not so much be an investment, but be a good store of values. What I always like to say nowadays, not investment, but a good store of value. If you're not going to have cash, you're going to have this. But as being someone who's sold at a loss a lot these last few years, I don't want something that's going to go down. And I feel pretty darn confident in the Griffies. I would say the same if I'm holding Kobe's. I mean, Kobe's a bit more volatile. I'll say Jordan, LeBron, and Griffey, to me. And you could throw Kobe in there, but I think those three markets are pretty strong, depending on the card. So it's one of those things where I feel pretty good about, and I think a lot of people would feel good in those particular collector markets. What are your thoughts on what happened to the hobby, how everything blew up, and where do you think things are going?
Yeah, if I had a dime for every time, I mean, I'd probably have a buck. But anyway, it's been hard to watch, Dennis. Again, I wouldn't say that I've benefited, right? I mean, there are, as I mentioned, so many. I mean, thousands of cards in the 2000s that I picked up from from Rick and from Mike and other collectors that have been selling recently, and at the highest of values, right? At the highest of values. I am, again, I'll say this for the 100th time, lucky enough to have the ECs and the PMGs and some of these cards that you watch end on Golden for $60,000. You watch on PWCC and for $30,000, $40,000, and you're like, it's the hardest thing in the world for a guy like me, a collector like me, that doesn't even remember. Again, I hate it, and there's some people out there that'll probably hate me even more for saying that, but don't even remember how much they paid for it, or paid $550 for an EC now back in 2008, 2009, 2007, 8, right? It was hard to watch, right? Because like, I could sell this card right now and buy a house. I could sell this card and pay cash for a brand new car, right? The hardest part about it was the investment and all these people coming in, investing in the cards, not treating it like a hobby anymore, not treating it like the guy next door. And the best part about the hobby, I alluded to it earlier, Dennis, was the best part about the hobby, not the fact that eBay took away the able to identify certain buyers and sellers. Okay, that has nothing to do with this. The hardest part is that now the people that said they were in it for the hobby only, that loved Griffey, that would never, ever, ever grade a card or sell this card, they would hold on to it to give to their son, their daughter, their family as an heirloom, are now faced with the reality. It's not their fault, but are now faced with the reality of, oh my gosh, the card that I paid $1,000 for is now 20 grand. As an example, you look at the 1989 Upper Deck Gen Mint 10. You could buy that, and I still don't even have one of those, right? But you could buy that card every day, all day, on 4 Sharp Corners, the website, for $220. And then it went up to 6 grand. And there's collectors that have 50 of them. So they have 100 of these things because they bought them at $200 a pop. Sold 50 of them at 6 grand. I mean, do the math. That's insane, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, watching this happen, or the Bowman Tiffany, right, all day long at $1,800. I still don't have that in PSA 10. I have a copy, obviously, but I don't have a PSA 10. $1,800. I'm like, there's 1,400 of them out there, or 500, or however many there are there. I'll eventually get it. Well, now I don't know what it is now, but it went up to 22 grand. And that's crazy to me. So all this money that was pouring in, right? They don't have to pay their rent. They don't have to pay their mortgage, right? Because the government tells them they don't have to. And they're on unemployment. They're getting an additional amount of money. Again, I'm going to leave the negativity of that out for all those that were paying their bills. And were paying, that had to work every single day like me. I was out there hustling and grinding for my money. I wasn't staying at home, right? So again, it's not, I don't want to go into that side of it, but it was really, really hard to see all of that happen. And it's like, dude, you don't really like Griffey. You don't love him. You don't have that experience. You don't have, at that point, 27 years of and countless hours of investing in my list and documenting, and the way that I post on Instagram. I mean, that's like an 8-step process, Dennis. It's not
right.
Snap a picture on a crappy background and post on Instagram. I mean, it's a 9-step process to what I have to do, and the amount of time I've invested in that list is so people can have access to it, can see the pictures uploaded, and eventually, and hopefully, little plug here, I find somebody that can make a website, and we can partner in website, and I can have all my collection on a website so people can see the museum of these cards. And we go back to, again, I know I'm branching off of the initial question here, but I go back to, how we can, the giants of the game, how we can get the knowledge out there. It's through means like this. Hey, there's a website where you can go and see every card. And whether or not I have to reach out to this collector because he has this one of one or he has this card and I don't, and and I tag that person of being able to use that photo. I mean, that's incredible. And so I go back to the question now: how many people out there are interested in that? There's thousands, Dennis. There's thousands, if not tens of thousands, of collectors out there that would beg to have something done like that of Jordan. There's a website out there of Ichiro that highlights everything up until I think 2003, and it's incredible. Like, you can go there and click on the image and see the image of the card, and that's actually how I got the image of the bat barrel from 2002 to I think it's 2003 Ultimate with Ichiro and Griffey. There's only 3 of those, and those are never going to leave, right? I'll never have the opportunity probably to add that one to my collection, but I know what it looks like because they want to share, right? So again, I hope that as things have died down from the insane amount of money that's been given out for free, right, that it hones in on the true collectors, right? You, Dennis, that had no idea that this card existed and was like, dude, I have to get my hands on that card. I have to own that card. And this is why. Because only one has ever surfaced. And this is the story. A $300 lot. In a $300 lot. A multiple $1,000 card is hiding in that. Not one has ever surfaced. And it's unpunched, unredeemed, and it's the only one of its kind. And that is incredible to me. And so I think now that everything's died down, it's 2023. People are obviously getting back into their normal routine. There's not a whole lot of money flying around. There's talks of recession. I mean, all that negativity aside, I truly feel that the genuine, true, I love Griffey collectors, I love Jordan collectors, I love whoever collectors. Though it's going to broaden. It's going to broaden the hobby. It's going to bring back the love of the hobby. It's gonna eliminate the stress, the stress of investors coming in and not ruining the hobby, but adding an essence to the hobby that isn't necessarily required to love what you collect, if that makes any sense.
Still there, Marco?
I am, Dennis. You got me? Are we still live?
This is what I want to do. I want to break this off into bite-sized pieces. You have so much great information to share, Marco. So, friends out there in the collector's world and Luka Nation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a couple different episodes with Marco because he's got so much to share. To do.
Well, Dennis, I
think we're gonna finish this episode. Yeah, we're all around here, but I'm just gonna do a part 1 and a part 2.
Part 1, part 2. I'm down for sure, Dennis.
This is gonna be part 1 of our conversation with Marco. Part 2 will come the following week. We'll do another episode, and we'll have way more to share with you tomorrow. We'll have way more great stories. I want to thank him for look forward to seeing you guys.
Awesome, Dennis. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely. We look forward to doing that.